Hello, Conrad, Lucy, and Caleb. Are you ready for another rock'em sock'em adventure from the Avengers? Well, I sure am. Let's go. Here's the cover, and look there. There's what's left of the Avengers. It's Giant Man and Iron Man and Thor. Wasp is around there somewhere. But look, they're fighting against the Hulk. Remember, the Hulk left the Avengers at the end of their last story. And it looks like he's going to team up with the Submariner. Oh my, what a battle that will be. In fact, they call it one of the greatest battles of all time. The Hulk and Submariner versus the Avengers. Well, here's the inside cover where it says the Avengers meet Submariner. All right, featuring the Incredible Hulk. And then they give you the notice he doesn't come in until page 15. So we got a lot of story to tell before we see the Submariner. But there'll be a lot of adventure with the Avengers and the Hulk. So let's get started. They're holding their monthly meeting in the home of Tony Stark, millionaire weapons maker. The Avengers don't suspect he is really one of their members, the one called Iron Man. But we know, don't we? Iron Man says, I tell you, we've got to find the Hulk. So long as he is running wild, there's no telling what he'll do. Thor says, Iron Man is right. So says Thor. And the Wasp asks, but where do we find him? And Giant Man realizes he's one Joker you can't find in the classified ads. Iron Man then goes to a great machine. He says Anthony Stark, whose home we're using for this meeting, is not only a famous weapons inventor, but a master of all kinds of transistor-powered devices, such as this image projector. For example, it will enable me to put a search for the Hulk in motion in just a few seconds. Watch. What's going to happen? As Iron Man activates the projector, the device works like an ultra-frequency TV set, beaming his image in whatever direction he has set the circuits for. Though I remain here, my image can be sent to any destination like this. And so, traveling at the speed of light, Iron Man's electronic image reaches its first objective, the world-famous skyscraper tower of New York's Baxter Building. Who lives in the Baxter Building? Yes, it's the Fantastic Four. And so, look, here is Iron Man's image being projected into the presence of Ben Grimm. Perhaps the most miraculous part of Stark's invention is the fact that the image which is projected can see, hear, and be heard also, wherever it is. And so Iron Man shows up through his image projector. He says, forgive my sudden appearance, fella. I have a request to make. Ben Grimm says, send us a letter, pal. I've got a date tonight, and I ain't breaking it for anyone. But I'm trying to locate the Hulk. I thought you might help. Ben says, what do I look like? A bloodhound? Now step aside. You're breathing on my buttercups. And so Iron Man says, I always heard that the thing was bad-tempered, but there's the one I want, Mr. Fantastic. And so he looks in the room, and Mr. Fantastic is working on an invention of his own, and the torch is all lit up, and he says, look, Reed, we've got company. Reed says, it's Iron Man. I'll turn off the flame meter. And Iron Man says, the Avengers are trying to find the Hulk, Richards. He says, I'd like to help you, but as you can see, I'm in the middle of an experiment in flame control. I'm afraid the torch and I cannot stop now. And here comes Sue. She says, Reed, I'm leaving for the fashion show now. And oh, you've got company. And Iron Man says, well, if you should hear anything about the Hulk, and Mr. Fantastic puts his helmet back on and he says, if I do, I'll be happy to contact you. And now I can't let those ion tubes burn out. And Sue Storm says, if I bump into him at the fashion show, I'll give you a jingle. Ta-ta, boys. She's not likely to find the Hulk at a fashion show when all he dresses in is a pair of shorts. So, Iron Man searches the city again at unimaginable speeds, and he finds, who's that? Of course, it's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and he's captured a bunch of bank robbers with their guns. And he says, why fight it, guys? It'll only hurt for a minute. Iron Man notices Spider-Man and he says, Spider-Man, perhaps we can enlist his aid. Suffering spiderwebs, says Spider-Man. I must be working too hard. I'm seeing things. And Iron Man, just kind of floating there in air, says, don't be alarmed. I'm just trying to find the Hulk. Well, look, Spider-Man has got those crooks all wrapped up in his web. And Spider-Man says, look, do I tell you my troubles? I've got my hands full right now. Why don't you try the Missing Persons Bureau? Thanks for nothing, Sonny, says Iron Man. But that reminds me, there is one more place I can try. Seconds later, at Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, Iron Man shows up in the Danger Room. And the Beast is performing his acrobatic, his acrobatic exercises, and he bounds right through Iron Man's image. And Beast says, hey, where did you come from? And the professor says, what is this? Who dares interrupt our training period? Iron Man says, sorry, sir, but this will only take a minute. If you happen to receive any word of Hulk's whereabouts, I'd appreciate your contacting the Avengers. I took the liberty of barging in because the angel had told me to contact you if I ever needed a favor. I see, says Professor X. We shall notify you as you request if we hear anything about the Hulk. And now my training class is still in session, so I'll thank you to leave by the same means as you arrived. So, Iron Man has taken us on a tour of the known superheroes at that time. And finally, his electronic image returns to the Avengers meeting room. He says, I'm afraid I wasn't too successful. I alerted the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and the X-Men, but they're all pretty much wrapped up in their own affairs right now. Anyway, I had a chance to test my image projector, and Thor says, before we set out on a time-consuming worldwide search, why don't we contact young Rick Jones? Giant Man says Thor's right. He's the only one who can control the Hulk. Perhaps he can find him. The Wasp reminds them that Rick is a shortwave radio ham. He's probably at his set right now. And halfway across the country in the great Southwest, a grim-faced teenager receives the Avengers' message. I understand, sir. He might be in this area. It's his old stomping grounds. I'll start searching at once. A half hour later, he says the Hulk is too dangerous to roam out of control. He might, hey, what's that? And here comes a fella. He says, stay back, boy, stay back. Don't come any further. There's some kind of monster loose back there. Biggest creature I ever saw. I'm going to notify the police right now. And Rick thinks, I'm in luck. It must be the Hulk. I've got to reach him before the police do. I was right. There he is now. But what's he doing? Why is he reaching into that lake? So we finally find the Hulk reaching deep into the water. And he says, "Here it is. I knew I'd find it. Some fool stranger drove this thing right into the lake and ran off as soon as he saw me." So he's pulling out the car, probably that old fella who was running away. Rick says, "Hulk, it's me, Rick. Listen to me. The police will be coming after you soon. You've got to return to your cave." "Bah," says the Hulk. "Why should I run? I've done nothing wrong." "But people are scared of you," says Rick. "You know that. And in their panic, they try to destroy what they fear." Swayed by Rick's words, the Hulk hurls himself into the air with the mightiest leg muscles on earth as the slim teenager clings to his shoulders. And so they bound away. A short time later, they enter a hidden cave which leads deep under the ground. Hulk says, "I'm sick of running. Why should I fear other humans? I can smash them all." Rick says, "You don't mean that, Hulk. You're tired. You need a rest." Soon the incredible creature stands in front of a strange ray machine, a machine built by the man he once was. Rick says, "Don't move now. I'll flip the switch." Seconds later, the massive Herculean body is bombarded by a blast of blinding gamma rays. These gamma rays are very powerful. They're what turned Bruce Banner into the Hulk. And now they'll turn him back into Bruce Banner. Gamma rays, the mysterious discovery of Bruce Banner so many months ago, the rays which turned Banner himself into the Hulk. Finally, the onslaught ends, and where the titanic form of the Hulk stood, we now find the stunned, exhausted figure of Dr. Bruce Banner, atomic scientist. He says, "The nightmare is over. I'm myself again." Rick says, "It's lucky for us. You get worse each time you become the Hulk. You get harder to control." Whoops. "You gotta rest now, Doc," says Rick as he puts him to bed. "Everything's gonna be okay." Bruce says, "Lock the cavern door, Rick, and don't leave me in case I change again. I don't dare." And so the boy's long vigil begins, and he thinks, "It's all my fault. He became the Hulk when he saved my life by letting the gamma rays hit him. I can't ever desert him." But behind the massive door, as the night drags on, Bruce says, "I can't sleep. I can't stop thinking of the Hulk. It's the gamma rays. Rick didn't give me a strong enough dose. I can't remain as Bruce Banner." But then as he changes, he says, "Why should I remain as the weak Banner? Why shouldn't I be the Hulk? Why be a puny scientist when I can be the most powerful man walking the earth?" And so the transformation is complete, and before expected, Bruce Banner becomes the Hulk again. And then, with the sudden fury of a thunderclap, Rick realizes he's the Hulk again, and he's stronger than ever as he crashes through the cavern wall and breaks down the door. Rick hollers, "Hulk, wait, stop!" But he realizes it's no use. He doesn't even hear me. He's completely out of control as the Hulk bounds away. Frantic minutes later, at a local teen brigade radio room, he walks in and he says, "Let me at that set, condition red." And his fellow ham radio operators say, "Look guys, it's Rick." Grimly, the young leader of the teen brigade sends out an urgent call. "Calling the Avengers, calling the Avengers, have located Hulk. He's in New Mexico, Sector B, on the rampage. Come at once." And 2,000 miles to the east, at the home of Tony Stark, The radio message comes through. Come at once. And Tony says, this is it. The Hulk must be stopped. Even the other Avengers don't know that Tony Stark is really Iron Man, just as I don't know their secret identities. Well, I've got to alert them now. And he puts on his armor. Later, at the lab of Giant Man and the Wasp, a private phone rings. The Wasp answers it. She says, it's Iron Man. The Hulk has been found. And so Henry Pym changes out of his lab attire. He says, we'll leave at once. Get the location from him. And Pym says, I can travel faster on my flying ant, so take your shrinking capsule. And the Wasp says, didn't anyone ever tell you to say please, lover boy? And so they take their capsules and they shrink down to Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now for the Hulk. Iron Man flies off with his jet boots, and he says, Giant Man and the Wasp are on the way, and I called Thor's private number and left a message. And here comes Ant-Man on a flying ant. We'll reach the airport in minutes and hitch a ride on the fastest jet. And Wasp jokes, you know something, handsome? You look like a poor man's Ben-Hur on that silly ant. And if you don't know who Ben-Hur is, he was an ancient fella who used to drive a chariot. At the consulting room of Dr. Don Blake, the doctor says, it's been a busy day and I'm rather tired, Jane, so I'm closing the office early. And Jane, who's secretly very fond of the doctor, thinks, oh, Don, if only you didn't pamper yourself so. If only you were more rugged. Well, guess what? He's about to become very rugged. Once alone in his office, the pampered Dr. Blake strikes his walking stick once upon the floor. And the mighty Thor appears. Very rugged looking, right? Now for the Hulk. So he swings his hammer. He says, Iron Man's message said he was sighted in New Mexico, Sector B. It will not take the Avengers long to reach the spot, for we each have our own unique methods of travel. Sometime later, being the first to leave, Iron Man is the first to arrive at the appointed place, only to see, there's Rick, he says, but why is he trying to wave me away? He's trying to wave him away because the Avenger in the iron garb gets his answer one staggering second later. Wham! As the Incredible Hulk swings and hits Iron Man, knocking him away. Recovering from a blow that would have finished any human, not protected by an armored suit, Iron Man quickly manipulates his short-range power repulsor, and then he thinks, one brief transistor-powered energy blast should give me a few seconds to think of a plan. I'll direct the beam at those boulders in front of the Hulk. This won't stop him, but it's sure to slow him down. So wham, his energy pulse blasts some stones at the Hulk. The Hulk says, bah, is that the best you can do? And he grabs a hold of a cactus. And then he releases all of the needles in the cactus. He says the Hulk doesn't need an iron suit to get his power. Then he thinks, if I can force some of these cactus needles into the openings of his suit, they may put him out of action. So look at all these cactus needles that are flying around. Well, Iron Man simply picks up a slab stone to protect himself. He says, you're wasting your time, fella. Why don't you stop fighting and let me talk to you? But the Hulk is in no mood to be reasoned with, and as the cactus needles continue to fly, they seem like huge javelins to two newcomers on the scene, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man says, take cover, Wasp. head for that anthill. She says, you don't have to tell me twice, playmate. And so she's going to seek refuge. The wasp says, wait, Hank, the Hulk ran out of cactus needles. No need to take cover now. Ant-Man says, do as I said, Jan. I have a reason for entering the anthill. Once inside, the astonishing Henry Pym communicates with the ants by means of his unique cybernetic helmet. And Wasp says, why don't you turn into Giant Man, Hank? He can do a lot more than the tiny Ant-Man can. Ant-Man says, wrong, Jan. Even Giant Man can't match the Hulk's strength. This calls for cunning. And so, obeying the orders transmitted by Ant-Man, the diligent insects drop countless pebbles into a fast-rushing underground stream. What good will that do? Well, let's watch and see. Up above, Iron Man continues to try to reason with the Hulk. We don't want to fight you, Hulk, but we can't let you run amok through the countryside. You've got to stay with us. Work with us as a team. No, you can't fool me. You all hate me. You fear me because I'm the strongest. If I stay with you, you'll find some way to destroy me. Meantime, directly under the Hulk's feet, the pebbles have dammed up the underground stream. The rushing water, having no place to go, bursts upward to the surface, causing the ground underfoot to crumble. Ant-Man flies up into the air. He realizes that must be the work of Ant-Man to trap the Hulk. But the plan proves to be in vain, for the Hulk's unbelievably strong leg muscles catapult him to safety. And he says, here's where I snap that armor plate of yours like a tin can. Iron Man says, don't count on it, Buster. I'm not exactly helpless up here. And he grabs the Hulk. Did I ever tell you about my magnetic repulsors? They can spin a body around in the air, attracted by its iron content. And so he uses his magnetic repulsors, and the Hulk spins in the air. Here comes the Thor. He says, let me have him, Iron Man. Dizzy from the rapid whirling he has endured, the Hulk seizes a natural rock formation below and uses it to break his spin, just as Thor appears on the scene. He says, this'll slow me down. Hear me, Hulk, says Thor. I am not as merciful as Iron Man. I order you to return with the Avengers or suffer my wrath. Hulk says, just let me clear my head, long hair, and then we'll see who does the suffering. Iron Man says, careful, Thor. He's capable of anything. Tin Man, says Hulk, you don't know just how capable I am. And now I'm going to give you a demonstration. And so the Hulk jumps up into the air. You want me? Come and get me. And Iron Man says, we'll do that little thing. Thor revs up his hammer and says, after him. But Hulk says, I was hoping you'd do that. While you go up, I'll crash down again. And so the Hulk crashes through the ground into an underground mine shaft. He says, nobody knows this part of the country like I do. I figured it perfect. Landed right in this old abandoned mine shaft. And so now he says, by the time they figure out which tunnel I took, it'll be too late for them. And so he runs off in the underground mine shaft where he can hide and plan his next attack against the Avengers. Well, Hulk says it's late for the Avengers. Well, it's late for us, and it's time to wrap up this part of our great story of the Avengers versus the Hulk. But when we come back for the second half of our story, who's going to be waiting for us then? Indeed, it's the Submariner. I can't wait. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right. Love to everybody. Bye bye for now.